the WebEx meeting app, and I clicked on that, and nothing's happening. But that's okay. I can talk by phone.
Okay, we'll get. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Something on stock camp quick. I've been trying to do that for the last 10 minutes.
Okay, if it is 10 o'clock at my location, so we will start the meeting, and I'll read through our start. The meeting will be held in person and via WebEx and streamed live on the internet. Not more than 2 county commissioners will be present in the meeting room. The public may join the meeting via WebEx in person in the meeting room or watch on live stream. If joining the meeting in person, the total number of persons, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10, and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota has issued Executive Order 20-01 declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota strategy to protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute 13D.021 Subdivision 1 have been met and is not practical or prudent for all members of the county board to meet in person. And the public is invited to join the meeting in person or remotely, and it gives the numbers. So we will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So weird.
Okay. It always sounds like a 3rd grade round when we're saying that. But the public forum, is anybody on that wishes to speak at public forum?
This is Eileen Group. I'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
On the agenda that there is a resolution to have a mutual aid for the Pine County Sheriff's Office. We have barely enough officers as it is, or deputies as it is. I know it took half an hour to get the 2 deputies who were the only ones on call when we had a half inch of snow a couple years ago. We don't have enough deputies on duty in our own county, and send them to a county where they want to get rid of their police force, and 200 police officers have left because they don't want to be in that situation. Why should we put our deputies in a situation where they don't want police? I think it's dangerous.
Great.
I have to say.
Next. Your comments? Anybody else that wishes to speak at public forum? If not, we'll move on to the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Menke, County Administrator. There are 2 additions. If we could add to number 9 on the consent agenda, this is an application for exempt permit. And if we could add to number 8, Roman numeral 3, a new hire to hire Deputy Sheriff Ryan Manley. And then additional information for agenda item number 6, the minutes from the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee.
Any other additions or corrections to the minutes? Or to the agenda, I mean. If not, we'll look for a motion of approval of the agenda.
This is Terry. I'll make that move.
Morrow, second.
A motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore, to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
4, Commissioner Waldheim.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Move on to the approval of the minutes of February 2nd, 2021 County Board meeting and summary for publication.
Ludwig moves.
Lovegren seconds.
We've got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren to approve the minutes. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldheim.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there are no other reports or correspondence. I think that's the first time in modern history, but which moves us on to the approval of the consent item with the additions.
Ludwig moves.
Morrow, second that.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Moore to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldheim.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda. And the first thing is a recognition of retirement of Joanne Gray. Joanne has been around the county since I can remember as a volunteer, EMT and ambulance provider, and been at the jail for 13 years. So Joanne, are you on with anybody?
I am.
Thank you
I'm
very
with
much.
the state of Williamson.
Thank you. Rod, are you going to say anything?
Yeah, well, I just was going to kind of probably read a little bit too, but I just want to recognize Joanne Gray, Sergeant Gray. She's been with us, like you said, just over 13 years, but she brought with her a lot of experience in her years of experience with the ambulance crew, and that was, very valuable to us. So Sergeant Gray, she's been a very valuable and respected member of our corrections team. She's serving as a positive role model for all our staff at Pine County Jail and everything she does. Her years of experience on the ambulance crew, it led her to a role with the Sheriff's Office as a lead instructor for first responders, first aid, CPR, and a number of other things that she's threw her hat and ring on helping us along. She started as a part-time corrections officer in 07, was promoted full-time in 09, and again promoted in 2012 as a jail sergeant, where she currently has that rank now. During her tenure at the Sheriff's Office, she's worn many hats, and she's taken on duties as cooking manager, prayer coordinator, scheduling sergeant, all the while guiding her team to become highly effective corrections officers. Joanne is a prime example for all our staff starting out in corrections. That hard work, dedication, and professionalism are rewarded with career advancement opportunities as a respected member of the Pine County Corrections team. Joanne is certainly going to be missed by everyone throughout the county, but especially in the Sheriff's Office. So congratulations, Joanne, on your retirement, and good luck.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Joanne. Enjoy retirement. I think that means you get to spend more time at the Pine County Fair volunteering.
Oh, boy. I will be back in the States from the fair, yes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Enjoy. We'll move on to certificate of appreciation to Marianne Lancaster. And I know she's on this call because I've heard her, but is Caleb or Kelly, are you going to say anything?
This is Caleb. I just thought I would introduce her a little bit here, if that's
Yep.
okay. Since I've been with Pine County in the recycling program, we've had a handful of good Samaritans that have kind of residents that just kind of step up to help out the whole cause for recycling. But this recent project Marianne Lancaster has taken on with recycling of plastic bags has just been off the charts with the amount of dedication she's put into it and the impact that she's had. She's got about 30 different businesses around Pine City, all collecting plastic bags, and they're being recycled. With all recycling, you know, hauling it is really challenging. It's costly, and often it absorbs any of the revenue that you get from the material. Well, there's a program up at Chris's in Sandstone where it's part of a backhaul for them when they're bringing trucks all the time with food, obviously. They're backhauling all the plastic bags. So if we can get things to Chris's up in Sandstone, we've got free transportation from that point. So she's been very proactive in getting as much value out of that backhaul as we can and just organizing all kinds of people to recycle. So we want to acknowledge and thank her for everything she's doing to divert waste from the landfill that we pay dearly for.
Thank you, Caleb. And Marianne, thank you so much for what you're doing. I sit on the solid waste board, which runs the landfill, and every pound of whatever that we can keep out of that landfill saves us space. And building a new cell for a landfill is very, very expensive. And so those plastic bags, I was at a thing, I can't remember now, it's like 200 or 300 years before they completely disintegrate. So we can make them into a bench and somebody can enjoy sitting on it next year. So thank you very much, Marianne, for your efforts. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Mr.
was
Chair,
just
I got a
going to
quick question.
comment.
Yeah.
One question I have is how much is 500 pounds of how does that feel like a pickup or is it
Yes, it
like
does.
a trailer? Okay. Just to put it in perspective, I guess. So, and thank you for what you're doing.
I wanted to just comment that if
Yeah.
any of the district gentlemen want to contact me, I'll be glad to go into other communities and present the information.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yep.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to Land and Zoning Advisory Committee. Who's going to take that first?
I'll start with it and we'll see if Matt wants to add some stuff. How's that for
All
you?
right. Yeah, good deal.
That works for me.
So the very first part up through the Land and Zoning Advisory Committee, through the blight demolition and the improvement structure encroachments, those are two things that we're still working on, but everything else through the homestead repurchase contract, that's all stuff that we have to do annually. So we need to pull the prior sales off so that we can get them reassessed or revalued and put them back on the sale. We have our land auction that's going to be on there, and that's listed in the enclosed packet. Everything is basically the same. We're talking about blight demolition, cleaning up stuff. That's money that we've been saving, and we've got money that goes into that, and that's the same as it was last year. We're dealing with improvements and structure encroachments and trespasses, and that's some things that are in the packet that we can talk about if you choose to. But we have people that have been building, or that they have property that they built that's encroaching our property, and it needs to be removed. We had one that they built a deck on a piece of property on Cross Lake, and we were able to subdivide that, and they were able to purchase that so that they could keep their deck on it. But we have some other properties that need to be removed. The land fund, which is number 4, that one we had a change on the 5% that goes to the blight and the 5% that goes for the management of timber. That hasn't changed, but we did increase the tax forfeited land where it's going to go into parks and recreations. It was 10% last year, and we increased that to 20%, which is the max that we can take. And the reason that we did that was because we're not going to have the sales that we've had in the prior years. And we have parks and trails that we have planned. And if we don't have the money in that fund, we're going to have to take it out of our highway fund, which we really don't want to touch. So we did increase that to 20%, and that's going to be sales that come from the timber sale and the land sale. Anything else anybody has any questions on, or Matt, do you have anything?
No, I think you covered it all. My only question would be to the chair. We have 4 resolutions. Do you want to take them one at a time, or?
I think if you restate each resolution, we'll do them all at once. So we make sure we understand what we're voting on.
Okay.
Do you want to take the first 3?
So the first 3 are the land auctions, the proposed list, and that's in, let me find it. It's in the sale here. So if you go to the Land and Zoning Advisory Committee, the land packet is in that sale, everything that we're planning on selling this coming year.
Yeah.
So that's number 1. So we set that, we accepted the resolution to the board, all of that stuff, there's no changes to that. Everything is the same according to statute that's been every year. The withdrawal of the parcels that we had from 2021 through 12 is just taking the parcels that had not sold previously and withdrawing them so that they can't be sold after July 9th. If anybody comes to the counter up to July 9th, they can purchase that property, but after that, it needs to be pulled off, and then it will be revalued and put back on the land sale list at the newer value. And then the homestead properties, if I'm a homestead and I've been forfeited, well, let's go if my property's forfeited and it's not homestead, I have 6 months to repurchase my property or I lose it. With homestead, they have until the date that the board sets, which is July 27th. And that date was chosen to give them time to be able to get everything done that they needed to have done and for it to be sold on the land auction in September.
Got it.
Did you want to go from there? Or do you want me to keep going?
So the only one left, yeah, I can cover the next out.
Okay.
So that was, the first 3 she covered will be 2021-11, 2021-12, and 2021-13. And the only other one is 2021-15, which is the change there is going to be the up to 20% of the corporate dollars going to the Parks Recreation Fund.
Okay, thank you for doing that. Does everybody understand those resolutions?
Well, if you could clarify, Mr. Chair, if we could,
yeah.
What is the 20%, Matt? The 20% of the funds?
From the sales.
Up at.
Yep,
okay.
So the county gets to take their cut first before it gets divided up between the school districts and the townships and such. So it was 10% prior to this, so we raised it to 20% because we know we have projects that are coming up that we have to have match dollars for and things like that. So we just, and that the land we're selling is probably going to be reduced in the future, you know. So we're just trying to capture some dollars there. It's not a big number, but it's going to help.
And that's the one, JJ, that if we don't have the money in the fund, then they're gonna have to take it out of the highway funds. And, you know, we're doing everything we can to not have to touch highway money.
Right.
Sure.
So was that in the form of a motion from the committee?
Yes.
Yes, I'll second. I'll second. If
Okay.
Lovgren made a motion, I'll second.
Lovgren made the motion. Ludwig seconded for the resolutions 11 through 15. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
And Chair Holland, this is just to confirm that this is actually for resolutions 2021, 11, 12, 13, and 15, because 2021, 14 is on a different matter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Matt and Terry, can we go back to the trespass structure question?
Yes.
Is that's going to come back to the board for at a later date?
Yes.
I assume you're talking about structures that people build on county property that it's county property. And I know many counties have things about permanent deer stands and cutting shooting lanes and pounding spikes and trees and stuff that we don't want to screw up our logging folks with.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ludwig, it's right now we know we even have some buildings that were built on county land. So we're working on those and they're being handled through Greg's office. And then there was just discussion on the deer stands and the stuff we brought up like at the last meeting. We're working on that language for the future to,
yeah,
you know, we want everybody to use it and have a good experience on the county memorial forest. And if one guy comes in and cuts down 100-foot lanes in every direction and the next guy wants a nice wild hunt, it's changed until, you know what I mean? So
right.
We can't let one guy come in and just cut down our timber either, so.
Right.
So we're gonna work that out, and that's a work in progress, put it that way.
Yes.
And that will come back to the board.
Okay.
And
Say, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Chair, if I can ask.
Yeah.
Let's say, Matt, what are you seeing? What types of land is it? I mean, is it all types of county land? Is it mainly just the forfeited pieces, or is it a whole mix of, what are you seeing the most of, you know?
My understanding.
In general?
Yeah, Commissioner Waldholm, it's a really good question. My understanding right now is our memorial forest properties, which are our big blocks out there that Greg is managing, and that's where most of the hunting happens. And right now, Greg lets people, like say there's a 40 landlocked somewhere and it's the adjoining landowners, he lets them make a little trail into their stand. You know, they can't cut down, but they can make a trail. He allows that. We're gonna be looking at that kind of thing too, you know, we don't let them take the skidster in there and make a road. you know, they can remove some brush to make like an ATV trail or something like that, minimal impact. So, but on the big tracts of land is where we're really trying to focus the, you know, the big memorial forests, the big oak stands and stuff like that, so. But there's gonna be more to come on that when we really get it fine tuned.
Okay, the memorial forest properties. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right,
Chair Holland,
yes.
I have a question, I guess. There was also a recommendation for a proposed change to the demolition and cleanup policy. Does there need to be a separate motion for that, or I mean, I don't believe that was included in the resolution.
No, I think that's what we were just talking about. There's more discussion that's gonna happen with that.
That's what,
You're talking about, let's say, improvement and structural encroachments and trespass?
No, I'm actually talking about number 2, which is blight and demolition.
I don't know.
so the blatant demolition, this is Terry, it has been 5% of the proceeds from the land sales to blight. And so we've had like the gas station in Henriette, and we had a piece of property in Rock Creek. That's where that money is going, is to clean that up. And we still have money in that, but we did not change that fund, and that's still staying at 5%.
This is Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor. If I can just kind of insert a little bit there. So I think what Deb's asking about is there was a minor change to the policy regarding what we do with those funds.
Right.
And so the minor change was just that we will use those funds to correct issues, blight issues that affect the saleability of the property. And so it was a simple little add in on the policy of, are we okay if we use those funds when it's going to increase the ability to sell that property?
Thank you, Kelly.
And Kelly, this is Dave Minke. So when you look on the agenda, that piece is number 3, Roman numeral 2A. Is that correct?
2.
That is correct.
And so if the commissioners are agreeable to that change, there should be a motion to approve that change.
Yeah. So we should have a separate motion if that's what you're recommending.
This is Lefgren. I'll make that motion.
Ludwig will second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that matter?
Just, if I could quickly here, what you said, Roman numeral 3 2A, what?
2.
Yeah, so it's number 3, Land and Zoning Advisory Committee. And then if you go down to that Roman numeral 2, it'll say blight/demolition, letter A.
Okay.
That is the action that was just motioned.
Okay, thank you.
And the change in the wording is to increase the saleability of the property. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's just adding that as one of the reasons we do a cleanup.
Any other questions? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Walnick.
Aye. Sorry.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lefgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the Facilities Committee report.
Mr. Chair, before
Yes.
we move on, just so everyone is leaving this understanding what's left on the table, there's that Roman numeral number 3, improvement/structure enhancement, or excuse me, encroachments and trespass. that is the piece where there were comments that this is going to be further discussed by the Land and Zoning Committee, and that recommendation will be forthcoming. Is that what everyone's understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
At least that's what the chair understands. Thank you.
AJ, do you want to take facility?
Yeah, I can, and then please, Matt, jump in if you, the first one, it was a learning experience like anything new. Few things we talked about. Boy, I got some notes here. Maybe I took too many notes. I don't know if you like short and sweet or a lot of details here, but
the whole works.
the whole works. Okay. Well, it was interesting. They explained, and it was interesting to me how WIC pays rent and the state pays rent on our facilities. I guess I was under the assumption that the county puts the bill on a lot of that stuff. To know that a lot of this stuff is being done in-house stuff, I guess, meaning the current work they're doing with the renovation remodeling. I guess I like to see that if anything that can be done in-house with the staff that the county has, to me is a good way to go. There's a little bit of discussion about a portable wall, was it, Matt? Trying to figure out if it would be something at a later date to decide to add another one of those walls in, so you have more of a multi-use. And that was in the, what building was that in again? Where they're taking that, what do you call it, a stage or a platform?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ludwig, if you're okay, I'll respond to that.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was suggestion of considering a temporary wall in what is the boardroom. And so the dais is being taken out. And so we did look at that. And because of the roof structure, part of it is solid roof and part of it is drop ceiling. We just made the determination that it's not cost effective because of the roof rework that would be required to add that temporary wall. So it will just remain one large room with flexibility for conference room, classroom seating, or boardroom seating.
Okay, thank you. Talked about the CARES Act money. Another thing that they talked about was there's 10 years left on the bond. So there was just a little bit of discussion. Once that's up, there's just a lot of financial freedom, so to speak, that we get rid of that. And then I also have here that refinancing that Dave was talking about. Just take advantage of the low rates and save money. I personally think that's a great idea. You can eliminate some through taking advantage of lower interest rates is a good thing. The moving out of the courthouse, old courthouse, was discussed. Got a year to move with your rent, so to speak. So take time. It'll take time, and we're getting time to make that move. Sounds like. There's some fees that the county is going to be receiving. I think we talked about that at the first board meeting for like boiler maintenance and to maintain the card reader systems, but that could actually stop at any time. The maintenance contracts, if you could call it that. Talked a little bit more about the glass that was installed. If I remember right, Matt, that was with the COVID, but some of it was actually, they took advantage of that and put in a better grade quality glass. Because labor costs would basically, in my opinion, be the same whether you're putting up just some COVID glass or a little better quality. Then the unrepairable power supplies, that was discussed, and that I'm still trying to get my mind wrapped around that. 3 years, the batteries only lasted 3 years, but they say that they're a 5 to 7 year battery. I mean, that's something, I guess, like we would do at home or anything. If there's a warranty issue and you're getting something that isn't of quality, and you're, maybe that person thinks somebody could maybe dig into that a little more and just see if there's something they could do I mean, if they're promising you a 7-year lifespan, you're getting 3. Let's see, the sign, I guess me and Matt talked a little bit about that, to rebid that sign since there's time. The sign that was constructed in time for the North Pine Government Center. If I don't know if that went, did that go back out to bids then? Since the meeting?
I don't think it's been put out to bid yet.
Okay. Probably can't do much. A lot of frost now with the cold weather, but South Pine transfer was talked a little bit, the brush site and the building plans, and it was really nice to hear that a lot of thought went into that with the current ground conditions up there, you know, to try to go with a floating slab instead of, you know, once you unearth something and, you know, you could run into some issues of what could be in the ground there, anything from unbuildable material to things that you don't want to find. So it was good to hear that all that was thought through really well. And then another big thing that I learned that was good to hear also, that you do not need an architect and take on those architect fees for that type of a building project at the South Pine transfer. And at that, I have adjourned right after that little bit of the discussion. Is anything, Matt, you could add, or you think?
No, I think you did great.
No? Well, thank you.
Any questions?
This is Terry, I do. On number 4, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, with the addition of the conference room and the interview room to be under the stairs at the atrium. I brought up my concerns with the fact that elections, we were so extremely packed with people and supplies, and it started back in June and it went all the way through into November after the election. I'm really concerned about losing that space and what it might mean for the staff and staffing to do elections in the future, because I don't think that this was a one-year thing. I think it's going to be an ongoing with the absentee voters that we had. So I guess I would ask if that could be put on hold until, and see if we actually need that space for conference rooms.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lovegren, the priority during elections is elections. So we will find space for elections, whether, you know, these 2 rooms can still be used for elections, whether we have to identify other space in the courthouse. That is the priority of the county when it's election season.
Right.
You know, we don't have a choice on that. So we will do that. But whether these rooms are critical to the remodel or not, I think they are, in the sense that we are moving more people into the building and not creating additional conference space in those private office settings. So there is going to be a need to have additional conference rooms in the building. That space will still be available for elections.
I'm at that toss-up because I understand both of them.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, and absolutely, the expectation going forward is that there will be more early in-person voting versus less early in-person voting. And so we, you know, however that shakes out in future elections, we will have to be sure that we have space set up and dedicated that meets the needs.
Okay.
Well, committee, you keep forging ahead. And, you get tidbits from the rest of us, but we're not on that committee, so you guys are in charge, so we trust you. Anyway, if there's no other questions on the facilities committee, we'll move on to personnel committee.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ludwig, I'll take that.
Okay.
We met on February 8th. First up was Sheriff's Office. Better put my glass on. Corrections, we acknowledge the resignation of Jail Systems Coordinator Ryan Thompson. effective February 6, 2021. And we approve the backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies that would be due to lateral or internal promotion and lateral transfer. And then in the sheriff's office, we acknowledge the resignation of Chief Deputy Sheriff Paul Weidenstrom effective May 21st, 2021, and approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. We approve the filling of an open part-time deputy position as a full-time in anticipation of the upcoming vacancy in the sheriff deputies group. So just so you're clear there. So the chief deputy is going to retire. He's opening up internally because he'd like to take internal people without not bringing an outsider in, which is going to create that opening. And they're hiring and training this part-time deputy anyway. So, and the training is going to take longer than even the time before Paul retires. So he's going to be there. And they're pretty sure this guy's going to be able to move right in. He's a very good candidate. So then in auditor, treasurer and recorder's office, we approved updating the recorder clerk job descriptions with additional recording tasks, retiring the position as a recorder specialist, and reclassifying the position from a grade 4 to a grade 6 based on the safe system classification method. In land services, we know the resignation of the part-time recycling attendant Brenda Borchert effective January 31st, 2021, and approve the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies due to internal promotions. So I'll stand for any questions and hopefully I can answer them.
I got a question if I could.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, so you say then approve and backfill position and any subsequent, how's things looking staff wise? I mean, are they shorthanded? I mean, is it pretty smooth usually when to fill these, these vacancies and
Which ones are you talking about?
I think that
I guess,
Sheriff.
yeah, and the sheriff's, I'm sorry, in the sheriff's position.
And the
when it
sheriff?
comes to, yeah.
Yeah, that's, so
Pretty
yeah.
smooth process, that whole.
Yeah, that's pretty smooth. So what they have part-timers in a pool because there's so, and there's a part-timer that's rising up. They get a good exposure. And so they know who they pick them because they're with them, who they're going to move up. So,
Okay.
So, and that's one thing I've always liked about having a part-time pool. You kind of get to look at them. If you're so you get to see what the employees behave like. And then, so it's a good process, I think. But, if there's not any more questions, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve those recommendations.
Laurel, second that.
Are there any more questions, discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to the Health and Human Services Advisory Committee report.
Steve,
Matt?
you go, Steve.
No, yeah, I have a hard time, because I can't print off stuff, so I can't toggle back and forth.
I'm sorry.
I got two computers and my phone going here, but I still get lost.
I gotta find the minutes. So I have the agenda and I made notes. So this was my first sit with Health and Human Services Advisory Committee. And so it's an education for me, so I'll get that up right up front. And I work for this county, but I'm always learning. So we had an update from Barbara, I'm gonna say, on the 7 EAMHI. It's a mental health update with adults and stuff like that. And it was a great presentation with a lot of discussion on the funding and the funding problems that are coming at the state level. And we don't quite know what that impact's gonna be yet until the legislative session is done. We talked about the impact of the operations and staff on Health and Human Services from the pandemic, and I think it's going pretty well. Then we went on to the space planning update, and we saw the schematic again, like we did at Facilities Committee, how the staff will be dispersed in like the space that Commissioner Loveland was talking about, and the boardroom will be a big overflow because that gets used twice a month. And then Becky and David covered the legislative updates that are pending, and then we had a public health update by Sam. And other than that, I don't know what I missed. Vaccination clinics were going pretty well. And I think I got most of it. We have the standard discussion, Steve, you know, I think for new commissioners, maybe, what happens with the mental health and with placements, this is what costs juveniles or adults. We deal with in public safety, the deputies put them in the system, and also the courts put these people in hospitals, you know, for treatment or whatever, abuse or whatever. So what happens is when they get put there into the state hospital, they're under a crisis. So that's usually the state will cover the bill until they see it's no longer a crisis. And then they're done paying the bill, and it's like $1,500 a day. But what happens is that person really isn't ready to go out to the public and live life normally again, and there is no beds available for them. So now the county gets the bill. And then sometimes it's 30 days. We don't know how long it's going to be. So that's always what when we talk about on the legislative updates and that kind of thing, that's probably the meat and potatoes to me at the meeting. And I don't know, Steve, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, it's hard to explain to people, I think, because it's hard for me always to understand, but a person gets put in a facility in Anoka or wherever, and the doctor there says, we've done everything we can do for that person. So they can't be a patient here anymore. But there's no place else in the system, certainly not in East Central Minnesota, to put that person. So that person stays there. But like Matt said, then the state doesn't pay anymore because the doctors have said they can't do anymore for that person.
Yeah.
That kind of it in a nutshell, Becky. And then if they're there 10 days at $1,500, you know, that's 15 grand. If they're there 45 days, you know, that's 60 grand. So it adds up in a hurry. And when people corner you and say, you got to quit spending all this money on welfare, it comes out of Health and Human Services budget. So that's what it gets associated with. And so I think we have to keep that in mind, and the same with out-of-home placement costs. When a kid is put in a facility, and we have a lot of times no control over where that kid is going, we get the bill as Pine County. We get the bill because that kid is a Pine County resident, and we've had kids that have cost us, you know, $45,000, $65,000 before that kid got released from that facility. So that adds up in a hurry. I think we all get accustomed to saying, okay, 1% of levy is 170,000, and here we got two kids that just ate up 1% of our levy. We can't just turn the kids loose, because we can't just take a person that's in a mental wing of a hospital and say, too bad, buddy, figure it out on your own. That's not what we are. So those are, it's just understanding the costs and then trying to convince people that in some cases they may be Pine County's responsibility. In some cases, maybe somebody bigger than Pine County should bear the responsibility. Am I off base, Becky?
No, that was well stated. And just with the legislative or the budget proposal from the governor's office, there are some proposed cuts to mental health initiatives. And so what that means for Pine County and the region is if those proposed cuts go through, we would lose some services, and those would probably be preventative services, front end services, which means people will go deeper in the system, meaning more expensive things down the road. So that would be a significant hit to Pine County taxpayers and to Pine County services.
Thank you. I come away from those meetings, from this last one with Barbara giving her presentation and update, feeling so lucky to have people like her working for Pine County. There's somebody that she's doing not just a job, it's her passion. She takes that job with her 24/7. And so if you see those people, give them a pat on the back because they're doing extraordinary work for us. Anyway, any other questions on Health and Human Services? Thanks, Matt. We'll move on to the appointment of Housing and Redevelopment Authority. I don't believe at this point we have an appointment to make, but I would like to recognize Dorothy Stockamp for her many years of service sitting on the HRA committee. Those are non-glamorous jobs, to say the least. And so we thank Dorothy for the work that she gave to Pine County.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig, could I just say a few words?
Yes.
I was, you assigned me to liaison to that committee, and Dorothy Stockamp was the chair of that HRA board, and I think she was the chair the whole time, from what I gathered in the background. But she taught business school at ASCO for her career. And then, when she retired, she still stayed involved. And she was on the HRA committee, and then she also was on the Dollars for Scholars committee that holds all the scholarships for high school students. There's a big fundraising campaign. The local people all do it, and it's a great thing. And she was on the investment committee side of that committee. So she was on the main committee, and then she also sat on the investment committee. So she was really involved with kids and adults and on all ends of the spectrum. And then in the adult housing at the end. And I have heard stories where somebody be writing a letter or something to a dignitary or whatever. Well, they always had her proof it. Because she was a real stickler on the language and things like that. So she was just a great lady. And I guess that's enough said. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for adding that, Matt. Sometimes we forget who's behind those names, and we sure appreciate the hard work that they do.
Mr. Chair, I'd
yes.
like to say we are currently, it is my appointment, and I have some stuff out there. I'm just waiting to hear back from one person, and then we'll just keep going with that. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Yep. Aquatic invasive species AIS plan.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. So Pine County receives annual funding from the state for prevention and control of aquatic invasive species. And then for the benefit of our new members, then each year, what we do is we work with a number of partners to kind of oversee those dollars. We grant out quite a bit of it because a lot of the lake associations are really active with aquatic invasive species management. And also they're just a powerful force for, you know, being boots on the ground. So each year we kind of hold a meeting with those folks to talk about trends and the funding that what we've done in the past and look for new things. So, and then I put together kind of a budget based on those conversations, and they submit requests for funding. And then you guys have the authority to approve or modify that budget. So we've created Resolution 2021-14, adoption of the 2021 AIS plan and budget. So briefly, if you have that plan, there's about $57,000, well, $57,550 in AIS, aquatic invasive species control, and that's primarily the lake association. Well, it's entirely lake association activity. Pokegama Lake, they've requested funds for herbicide treatment, curly pondweed in the past. This year, they're going to hold back on that. They're just going to do mechanical treatment with a big harvesting barge that they have. For JJ's benefit, up in Windermere, they've been treating Eurasian water milfoil on sand and sturgeon lakes for the past several years, and they changed the chemistry of herbicide so as to not build resistance within those populations, but they've seen decreased success. So there's a newer product that they're using now that's a little more costly. So, but last year they kind of piloted it and it was successful. So a little more money this year going to Windermere for control on land. Cross Lake continues to work on curly pondweed. They've also discussed Eurasian water milfoil, and I'm not sure if I actually go through with that one, but the funding is there to do both. So that's where we have put together for AIS control. One success story that I think it's important to remember that since we've been doing this program and we've had this funding to work with, we've been able to fund these partners. We've had no new AIS infestations found. So all of the existing ones that we've been working on controlling are still there, but nothing new has been found. So to keep up that track record, we want to do some monitoring activities, education, boat inspection, stuff like that. So we've got about $7,000 for monitoring, looking for zebra mussels, some of the lesser known species, purple loosestrife and rusty crayfish. That's being done by the St. Croix River Association. They're a great nonprofit that works throughout the St. Croix River Basin on a number of things, but they have someone dedicated to AIS that does a really nice job. They also go into the Pine County schools and do the Rivers Are Alive program, which is fantastic. They've really done well with the Pine City schools, but they continue to make the program available to all schools in the county. And now, obviously, they've adapted the program for COVID so that they can be more of a distance learning module where they can still work with the students. On the prevention side, we have our watercraft inspection program. That's the biggest thing in which our office is active in. We hire about 4 or 5 watercraft inspectors a year and station them on the most busy lakes, still monitoring a little bit the less busy lakes. We've come in contact with a couple boats over the years that have had AIS that may have resulted in new infestations. So there's been some success there. And the boaters, they've built good rapport with the boaters and all that. So one of the newer items on that prevention component is that we're budgeting for a waterless decontamination station. How it works is it's got a, like an air compressor blower unit on it, as well as a vacuum, so that folks can clean out. The state law requires that you can't haul any water away from the lakes or on, away, so that people aren't taking live well water from one lake, bringing it to the next lake. Where, you might not be able to see the AIS that's in that water. So this unit has some tools for decontaminating, as well as kind of a weed picker. On the years with heavier weed pressure, where there's eurasian water milfoil, that can be a problem where you can pull the boat out of the water and it's just full of weeds. So it's got a tool to help boaters remove that. But then also it's just kind of educational presence when an inspector isn't there. So we're budgeting for that. And then for education, a couple of lake associations want to do some mailings. So we've got that in there. And then we've got some advertising and giveaway items. In the past, we've hired an intern to kind of assist the lake associations, help out with education, work with some businesses. We've worked with, some of the bait shops and resorts and stuff to just help give them any tools they feel they need, because obviously they have a stake in the game where, you want to keep your lake attractive to, to tourists and visitors, so that we still have that economic benefit. So the internship is on there as well. A portion of my salary is included for overseeing the program. And lastly, in the last few years, the St. Croix River Association they've got a basin-wide plan for AIS monitoring, response, all of that. So they've requested some funds just for administrative support. And then I also want to point out that several of these organizations do leverage funds, from other sources. So there are the funds that we do spend are showing some in-kind funds taken from other places to further beef up the effort. If we do not spend all the money that we get annually, we can roll it over. And that's been kind of the track record, where we've rolled over money about every year. And there have been a few years where, so our total budget is $181,975. We have every bit of the funds to spend that, but precedent has been that usually we underspend. With the watercraft inspection program, we have rain days, rainy seasons, then the inspectors go home. Maybe once someone quits, we come under budget pretty consistently. Any questions for me on that plan?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig, not about the plan, Caleb, that's good, but how long is the funding intact for? Where are we at in that from the state? And the second question is, do we have all of our accesses identified? I remember we were talking about that at one time, even on the rivers. I don't remember I ever heard back.
That's a good questions. So the payment rate that we get from the state is calculated based on the number of boat launches we have and how many trailer and parking spaces there are at each of those. So I think we looked into that pretty closely a few years ago, and the calculation is accurate, is what was determined. And as far as how long any expiration date of those funds, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe there is an expiration. Any unspent funds we can roll over with no expiration.
Yeah, Caleb, that's correct. The new allocations are done each biennium. And so that's how it's, we only know 2 years into the future if we're going to be getting any new money. But the previous money can continue rolling over.
Thank you. I will move resolution 2021-14.
Lefgren will second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, questions? If not, the clerk will call the roll. Debbie?
2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lundgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to the mutual aid agreement with the city of Minneapolis.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so law enforcement agencies and counties maintain mutual aid agreements, and so we have some existing ones for like the Regional Sheriff's Association. We did a one-off last fall when the then president went to Bemidji. We did one with Beltrami County. And so this one is being proposed in preparation for the Derek Chavez trial. If we don't, I mean, I guess how you give the mutual aid is, in this case, 100% dependent upon the sheriff making a determination at the time. This agreement doesn't commit to anything. It simply allows agencies to do planning. And then if there is mutual aid, it addresses things like liability and cost. And so if you followed the statewide media over the weekend, you know that the cost has become a political issue with the governor's proposal to create a fund apparently getting, no traction and being withdrawn. And then some legislators introducing the idea that Minneapolis would be penalized if they didn't pay for the aid that went to them. There's no reason to suspect that Minneapolis or any other requesting jurisdiction wouldn't pay. But in any case, this agreement is presented for your consideration to cover the liability piece and the reimbursement piece. And obviously, it's at the sheriff's discretion when and if to send aid. And I think the sheriff is on the call, so Sheriff Nelson wants to give some perspective. Certainly that would be helpful.
Yes, this is Sheriff Nelson. I can answer questions and give my perspective if that would be helpful. So, as was mentioned in the past, we've done some mutual aid agreements. We have one it's a standing agreement with the District 2 sheriffs, which is the northeast region of the state, primarily in response to line 3 if those demonstrations get to the point where they need additional assistance. We have those agreements that are formalized. We have, in the past, responded without an agreement under the public safety, and that was during the initial unrest down there. We did go respond to Washington County as one of the officers' residents was in their area, and they needed some help, so we did respond down to there, and that was again under the general guidelines that we can go help other agencies when they're in need. So, and we have seen the benefit on it as well in sharing those officers with both our funerals that we had last year. We relied heavily on our neighbors responding and helping. I guess it's 2019. We did respond or have our neighbors come and cover shifts so our deputies could go to the funerals and such. So we've been working kind of both ways with our neighbors, with law enforcement and public safety throughout the state, if you will. This one, again, I understand the politics, and I certainly was one that criticized the politics being involved in public safety during the initial event. And I think in my take away from that is if we let politics get in the way of public safety, I think we're doing things wrong. So as much as I want to get out of the politics of that, I think holding that against them in this case would be the wrong answer from my perspective. That politics, again, would be being used inappropriately so to withhold any kind of help. So that's kind of my perspective. That's my takeaway from it. And I want to be able to respond in kind as we've seen and help the other agencies. And it's not as much as it is an agreement with city of Minneapolis, to me, it's a public safety issue for any other county that sends people. Hennepin County, again, was very responsive when we had need, and they're going to be deeply impacted by this as well. So it's responding sheriff to sheriff, and state agency to sheriff as much as it is the city of Minneapolis. So this formalizes it. I think it helps answer some of the questions of how we can control our assets and liabilities as much as possible in that type of agreement. So I'll stand for questions if there's any.
Yeah,
Anybody have?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, at what point? I mean, how do the troopers get involved? I mean, they're there, and then like with the governor. I don't know how to word this proper, but would the governor would he be able to help out like with the National Guard or anything when they talk to these situations where there's a trial, riots, these things that don't happen often? I mean, at what point do they use those resources like the National Guard or troopers, and then leave counties like us out of it? Just so the governor can make that call, and then Jeff, you guys, the sheriffs, then are out of it.
Well, again, I think my takeaway again is all of those assets are in this same discussion. So the state patrol specifically is under the control of obviously the governor. I think they're already allocating all the assets they possibly can down to that event. The National Guard, I believe, has already been tapped into that as well. So there are all of those assets plus the additional need that they're looking for and asking for. So it is, I think, a matter of all hands on deck, if you will, so that you don't see what happened in the earlier event and everyone is stuck trying to catch up and respond. This is truly, I think, the pre-planning and doing it the way things should always be done, with known information rather than oops and trying to catch up. So I think the answer to your question is yes, the state's already deeply involved in it, and there's still a need.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, I know like you said, we've been the recipients when, something happens and a dive team I don't even know where these people come from. But yes, you see a van or something from Anoka County or St. Louis County, or we don't have reciprocal agreements every time with a county, because we don't meet to sign anything that says we're going to get somebody to come and help us. Do we? Or is there a blanket agreement for everybody to help everybody else?
Yeah, there essentially is the agreement that I can send deputies to Rochester if they call for help. So we have those. That's already built into the system where we can share resources, whether it's equipment and manpower, and we have those already in place. The formal agreement kind of just goes a little bit deeper and details the repayment and the liabilities and stuff. And again, it allows us to, when we can, commit those people, get a work assignment, and have those known assignments and expectations. So again, we operate under the understanding that we can, if needed, if they call and say, hey, we need this resource and we have it, we can send that. But the agreement, again, kind of just formalizes it with some of the expectations, allows us to set parameters and again, have some pre-planning.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Josh.
So with this, like you said, this just outlines formats at if or when this would happen. So if something was going on and you didn't agree with, sending guys down there, you can always just say, no, this doesn't say that every one of our deputies has to go down there if they call. It's to your discretion. If we got a situation up here where we can't spare nobody and or to your discretion, don't think you want to send any of your guys there. At no means does this commit us to anything, correct?
Right, so the next step would be for me to get a hold of them and say, here's what I think we can give you guys, here's what, kind of a commitment we can make to this, and they can plan X number of bodies and equipment and work it into their plan. And there was a discussion already statewide on that, it may be for a set number of days, but that set number of days is truly dependent on the trial and the timing and all of that. So there's no set in stone, but making the best plans they can with the unknown. So us being able to commit to a certain number of people will help them make that plans, but they're also going to have in that plan the replacement if county, whoever needs to pull their troops out and return home, or if a unknown event takes place in a neighboring jurisdiction, that they can respond or react to everyone's in law enforcement knows that things change daily or hourly sometimes. So having those plans in place with the knowns that they can control helps them have that ability to know that they can allow people to come and go if they need to. Sorry, long answer.
No, thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you, Jeff. You really cleared my mind a lot on what this request was for. I was kind of with Gussie on the other side thinking why, but I really appreciate your time and your explanation.
Thank you. And again, I have the same thoughts when the conversation started, and obviously my thoughts led me to where I'm at. So thank you.
Mr. Chair,
So
you're
we would
looking
need
for
we're looking
you're looking for a motion, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Moore would make that motion.
Ludwig will second.
Any more discussion?
I would just have one more question. I don't know
Yep.
if Jeff would know or not. It'd be directed towards Jeff. Is Minneapolis really, are they just that short-handed now? I mean, I follow the news too. It sounded like that. Did they do any defunding they were talking about, and then that made that sheriff then have to cut the staff so deep that now they are short-handed, or is it just the situation that they think this is going to be such a big event that they just have to have not only the state troopers and the National Guard, but I understand mutual aid wholeheartedly. In my past career, and I also believe in helping a neighbor. I understand that, but you think it's, in your opinion, are they that short-handed down there?
Well, I can only go by some of what I hear on the news on the numbers, and I can answer it from my perspective. If it's as bad as it could be, I don't think they could handle it full staffed anyways.
Yeah, okay, that's where I was kind of going with this.
And also, in reality is, if they would have, our hiring process is probably 9 months if things go well. So by the time we put out applications, do backgrounds, do FTO, all of that, it takes us a good solid 9 months to have somebody that can work independently and actually do the job by themselves. I don't think Minneapolis could have ever gotten enough people hired based on what I see in law enforcement hiring to have replaced the officers they've lost, whether it's, again, political or not. I think the reality is they couldn't have spun up enough internal hires to handle this either. So again, trying not to make it political. I think the full reality is they could not prepare for this. Full staff, I don't think they could hire enough in the time frame that they knew they were down to respond to it with staffing. So,
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So, yeah, and Jeff, I don't mean to jump in, but so sometimes it could be how long it's protracts too, right? this trial can take some time. And people have to rest. So, you know, they might just get, if it does protract for a long time, then maybe this will help JD. So people, they'll start a rotation here and there. So that's part of it. And then somebody raised a question earlier, I don't know who, but the mutual aid thing, we used to always operate, Jeff, you can help me here too, but it's an emergency. We always operate with emergencies. We would go help anyone. And we never charge and this and that, but you don't have time for agreements. It's an emergency. So like the bomb squad from Minneapolis. So when I was working, I think we had them up here 2 or 3 times. We don't have a bomb squad. So they come up and take care of that stuff and have all the stuff so nobody gets hurt. So we always do this, but I think because they know this is coming ahead of time, they'll have to prepare and it may protract for a period of time. So I think it's just a good plan.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor and seconded. Hearing no other comments. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
Sure. District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
No.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to support of local road improvement project funds. Mark, you going to take that? All right.
So we got a couple of townships in the city that are applying for local road improvement project funds. It's a competitive process statewide. And as part of that, they need a resolution of support, basically for the county to be the fiscal manager. And so 3 resolutions are Sandstone Township, the government road, Windermere Township for Palin Road, and City of Pine City is 8th Street Southwest. And so we kind of got inundated with these requests this year, and it's kind of been a statewide issue. So I think we got one project back when City of Sandstone did the road into the hospital. So, you know, it's a regional project, so it's a little bit tougher for us to have regional projects, but they want to apply, and so we want to be supportive of that.
So there's no guarantee they're going to get that all 3 of these projects would get funded, or any of them would get funded. Is that what you're saying?
Well, to put it in perspective, last round there was 10 or 12 projects for the townships statewide, and 10 or 12 for the small cities statewide. So I suspect there may be some changes I hope there's changes in the process, because it's really, it kind of excludes most of our townships and cities where we just don't have, you know, something that's a regional draw or whatever. So there's been a lot of discussion around the state on it.
Okay.
So not real likely, but it's worth a shot.
Right. So we need a motion on these resolutions.
Chair, can we do these all 3 as one, or do you want to do them all separately?
We could do them all as one.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
2117, 2118, and 2119. That's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Moral second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move on to broadband. We want to make sure we're scheduling, we kind of have it on our calendar already, but a special meeting for broadband. when we met with our strategic plan, this came out as one of the leading things that we wanted to work on. So we went to work on it right away. David lined up a meeting with myself and him with this Bill Coleman, who is a broadband consultant with the Landon Foundation. Bill has been doing this for 20 years or more. He grew up in the industry, and he's been an advocate for broadband. Probably the one name that people would recognize around the state that's the broadband, rural broadband authority, so to speak. But anyway, he works for the Landon Foundation. The Landon Foundation has a program where they train people within each certain jurisdiction about broadband and how to go about meeting their next goals. And so we have scheduled a meeting via video conference for the 23rd at 9 a.m. And we would like authorization to submit an application to the Landon Foundation for their acceleration program. And David, maybe you want to explain what that is?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it is about a 15-week program where we would put together a team of at least 8 people from the community who would be willing to invest 2 to 3 hours a week. There's an on-demand webinar that folks would be expected to watch, and then there is an hour-long interactive video conference on Friday each week. And then the plan is that this would be the core group that would work to figure out how to get broadband access expanded in Pine County. So if there were commissioners who wanted to be on that, if you were interested, if you let me know, or if we have a conversation today as to who would be best. I've been reaching out to some folks in the community and gotten some positive feedback that number 8 is the minimum. If we had 10 people or 12 people who were interested, that would probably even be a better outcome.
But this meeting on the 23rd is not limited to those people, correct?
No, that's correct. This meeting on the 23rd should be anybody who's interested in learning more about broadband, sharing a perspective on broadband, and helping, I think, build the foundation that says we need to do something to move forward. And I think the county, we've had this on our agenda for many years, and we've not made substantive progress as a county because you always run into the wall of, well, are the providers willing to put some money into it? And then the other wall that you run into is, as a county, we don't build, own, and operate broadband networks. There's no outcome that suggests we're ever going to do that. So what is our role? And part of our role in this case in working with Landon is to be the convener, right? To be the one entity that's countywide, that spans the many school districts, counties, businesses, cities and townships, businesses, and bring everybody together at the table and try to generate that interest and develop the resources that does get broadband expanded.
So when do you have to have your team members by?
The 26th, I think.
Yeah, after this meeting. So I think my take on it is that we go to this meeting and then people would decide if they wanted to be that committed. So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Are the school districts aware of this?
Yes.
School districts are aware, school districts are interested. There will be representatives from the school districts at the meeting on the 23rd.
That's huge. The school districts. And then we have the business group represented. You know what?
So I know Becky Schuler is planning to attend the meeting on the 23rd. She's the executive director of the Pine City Area Chamber. And I presume there'll be some other businesses that are interested. If you know people who own businesses, who should be there, certainly reach out and let them know.
Okay. I just didn't know how the outreach, how is the outreach can happen between now and then to all those people? It already has happened?
We have a multi-pronged outreach effort. It consists of me and you. Who we think would be interested.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So today, David, are you looking for a motion to do the application? Because first we have to do the application, then you got to get accepted, right. then we gotta go on to this. As I'm sitting here looking at the statistics, and Pine County ranks 3rd from the bottom. I can't imagine why we wouldn't get accepted into this, but I definitely would make a motion today to do the application. And I do believe we can find minimum 8 partners to get, or 8 people to get involved in it. I mean, as a commissioner and a business owner and kids in school, and whatever other hat I do wear, I would definitely go to the table as a bunch of them. But I don't know. I think we have to do something for sure. We have to do something. And this is a step in that direction. So like I said, I'd make a motion to do the submission. And I don't know, go from there.
Do I hear a second?
Lovegren will second.
Thank you. Just on a side note, I have heard, well, we'll vote on it first and I'll tell you my little story. It has nothing to do with the vote. Are there any other questions for on the motion to put in an application for this Landon program? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shortly after David and I talked to this Bill Coleman, I got a call from a contact I have at Midco, and they are planning construction for a portion of the northeast corner around Cross Lake. Many are familiar with that area, and also a portion of Rock Creek, basically a corridor along Highway 70 going east from the freeway, if I understood them right. And then SCI has a swath of land up by the Sandstone area that they are going to build, that they got some federal money for. And then there's a company called LTD that pretty much picked up most of the contract from the federal government to build out. The problem with LTD is they got like billions of dollars nationwide, and they only have 150 employees. So the industry talk is, how can they do that? They don't have enough people to even manage projects. So I don't know where that will. This week, the second round of application, the explanation of how they're going to complete projects has to be in by the 16th. And so some companies are waiting to see what that will yield. But we know we got 2 small little sections that are going to get built in the next probably 18 to 24 months. So it's progress.
Mr. Chair. So even like that, and I think that's where this is going to come in handy, where if you got a county like us that's ready to say, oh, we realize you only got 150 employees and a lot of money, but here we'll help you get that, get digging and You know, and I think that's what has to happen, because we all know, I'm not saying Pine County is one of them, but we all know, we've all heard the stories of someone that wants to go somewhere or do something and do a project, and there's so much red tape, so many hoops to jump. And if we have all that figured out for a company to come and say, hey, in the matter of whatever, we can have you set up, you know, and here's where the people are, here's where they're underserved, and this is what they want, and knife it in and be good to go, you know. And I think that's really where the guy's got to be. Like I said, when I look at the map, and you know, you can't say Pine County's rural any more rural than some of these counties that are 80 to 100, 90 to 100% of their households have a good internet connection. It's kind of embarrassing, and we're not the only county there either. I mean, it seems like our whole area is kind of a bad area, but something's got to be done, and I hope this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you. We'll find out more on the 23rd. Coronavirus update, public health. Sam, are you on?
I sure am.
All right.
I am set up in the courthouse right now doing second doses for a batch of people who came in 4 weeks ago. Hence the mask and the new place. So right now we are pretty much in the same place we were at a couple weeks ago of just waiting for more vaccine. We get a little bit at a time. Here's 100, and then here's another 100, and another week. So we have managed to vaccinate Hinckley, anybody who raised their hand at Hinckley Finlayson schools, East Central schools, and Willow River schools. We were supposed to be in Pine City schools tomorrow, but the massive winter storms down south has screwed with my timelines. So hopefully we'll be in there Friday instead, because the shipping of vaccines is being delayed. So hopefully we'll get there Friday. We do have second dose clinics now and Thursday. Next week we have more second dose clinics. So we're still receiving those in a timely fashion. We get our doses at the right time for second doses anyway. So that, knock on wood, has always worked. In terms of like cases in general, we're still looking really good in the state, even across most of the country. Cases have come down from that huge peak we saw in November and December. Now we're kind of hovering at a more reasonable, still epidemic level, but much more reasonable. It will be really interesting to see what happens once these variants become the dominant strain, because they are more infectious, and some scientists are saying that we're going to need to see another spike here later this spring. Once that strain, those strains, the South African strain, the UK strain, become more prominent. Don't know for sure. Bit of a crystal ball. But that's why we're really just chomping at the bit to get these vaccines out. The more people we can get vaccinated, the sooner we can get to actually getting a handle on this pandemic. So we're chipping away, slowly but surely.
Chair, I have a question for Sam. Sam, I sat in on the State Department of Health meeting the other day, and they were talking about some of the counties have been getting more shots than they can give. And so they've been giving them to the local doctor's offices or pharmacies or whatever. How has Pine County been with that? Have we been able to get rid of our shots when we get them, or have we been sharing, or?
I mean, we would be willing to share if we were rolling in the vaccines, but no, we have not shared a single dose. We get every dose in an arm, 72 hours, or no later than 72 hours after assuming it's a dose. So nope, we use every vaccine that they give us.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
No other questions for Sam? Keep up the good work, Sam. We appreciate what you're doing, and I know you're you're advocating for more doses all the time. So,
yep.
We'll move on to the business and nonprofit assistant grant program.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so we anticipate that the list of award recipients will be finalized this week and checks start to go out as early as this week. So that is where we're at. Based on the requests, we are only able to fund about 40% of the requests. And so there will be a number of organizations that received less than they requested, and a lot of organizations that applied that are not going to receive any funding. And so that's quite different than our previous grant rounds where we were pretty much able to fund everybody who met the minimum qualifications. So there may be some follow-up by those businesses with some of you to learn more. And so if you do get questions, Kelly, Don, and I can certainly help explain the process that was used to rank and award, make those awards. And then in your packet, you do have the actual agreement with the Initiative Foundation for them to administer the program for us. It provides $14,212.47 in funding for them. And so if you're agreeable to that, if you would approve the agreement.
This is Lovegreen. I'll make a motion to approve that agreement. And I just want to say to you and Kelly and Don, that was quite a job that you were given, and to be able to go through all of those applications and choose who and how and when. Thank you for that. Yeah, that was quite a challenge, I think.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Moral second that.
Steve, you're currently muted.
I'm sorry. Any questions? If not, clerk will call the roll.
One, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegreen.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldron.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. That leads us down to legislative update. Do we have anything?
A couple of things, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder that the legislative conference for AMC is this Thursday. If commissioners are able to make that, that is the best source of current legislative information. We talked during the Health and Human Services Committee update about some of those issues. I would just add one more, that the out-of-home placement paperwork reduction act, I've not seen introduced yet. Last session, Senator Rarick carried it in the Senate, and Senator carried it in the Senate. I'm getting them confused. Senator Rarick carried it in the Senate, and Representative Nelson carried it in the House. I don't think it's been introduced yet. I did reach out to Representative Nelson last week and have not heard back. But if you do have a conversation with them, if you want to talk, ask them about the out-of-home placement paperwork reduction act. And then the governor's budget has proposed some cuts in funding to the county probation system. And I think Terry has got a little bit of feedback or perspective on that. And then that might be an issue that potentially the county board would want to make a formal legislative position on not making those cuts. So, Terry?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As David indicated at the last board meeting, the proposed cuts were looking at 2.5% reduction in CPO reimbursement in 2022, and potential for more significant cuts up to 6.61 reduction in 2023 and each subsequent year for pass-through dollars for both the CPO and the CCA delivery systems. The Commissioner of Corrections called a meeting on January 21st with the delivery system partners. They kind of laid that out. That obviously was met with some strong reactions from the other two delivery systems. He subsequently called a meeting with the CPO delivery system on February 8th, and then we met with the deputy commissioner on February 9th. At the first meeting on January 21st, the Council of State Governments was also present at that meeting. One of the things that they're looking at is what constitutes base services. That's always been kind of a moving target. You know, how do you get your funding? Who should get funding? Who should get more funding? One of the reasons that it's been difficult to come with a uniform funding stream, for example, is small counties have different needs than large counties. Smaller counties sometimes do a deeper dive into programming than a larger county might do. And so we're taking a look at those things. There is some thought from our delivery system that the commissioner is just trying to fast track and move and somehow blow up the CPO delivery system. We've asked them that point blank. If that's what you're looking at, tell us how your proposed formula is any better than exists. And so one of the things I recommended was, can we just quit talking about it and put a joint committee together that really takes that deep dive with the financial people to say what makes sense in corrections in Minnesota. Does that mean the DOC falls out of community services altogether? Should they just handle prisons? And should CCA and CPO do the rest of the work? And so we have identified 5 directors from the CPO delivery system. I've been selected as one of them to have those meetings with the Commissioner of Corrections. He did have a meeting separately with the CCA directors at the end of last week as well. So we think we're going to start engaging in some pretty deep level discussions with the DOC and put some potential ways on making things better. There is a long history of mistrust between delivery systems. We're not interested in rehashing those. We're interested in just laying it on the table and having those discussions. The one thing I can say is I've been impressed with the commissioner in terms of he's been willing to engage in this conversation and do this. Other commissioners have done that to a point, and then they've kind of left you standing at the altar and wouldn't go any deeper with it. So a lot of work ahead of us, but hopefully some work that'll make things better. I'll give you a small example of how sometimes these hidden cuts you don't even get to know about. We have a small remote electronic alcohol monitoring grant where we get, it was $6,500 a year on a 2-year grant that helps pay for indigent DWI offenders to come out of our county jail and be supervised by my department. The DOC implemented something a couple of years ago that said, if you're underutilizing those funds, we can take them back. So today I get an email saying, until the end of June, we're now taking $3,000 back, so you have $3,500 to use until the end of June. Well, we can't predict who gets ordered and what happens, and so if we spend more than $3,500 between now and June to take care of indigent folks that we're responsible for, then that comes out of my budget. So that might be insignificant to the DOC, but that's not necessarily insignificant to a small county with smaller budgets. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view, if you will, if I'll entertain any questions if you have any.
Anybody got any questions for Terry?
No.
Terry, I want to thank you for stepping up to the plate and representing our county and your whole group. But because I think we do you do great work, and I think we've got a good delivery system here, and you've got a good relationship with all the partners, and we're trying to make people better because they're going to be back in society in a month or a year or however long it takes till they're done with their, and we don't want to see them back in the system. So we're happy with that. But the one thing you said I'm really happy to hear is that if you can all sit down and hash out what is the best system that we can have for programs in the state of Minnesota. I don't care what county you're from or where. What's producing the best results, and how do we get there? And It's long needed in my opinion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need something from the county board in form of a resolution at this point, or are we too early for that?
Well, I don't know if we're too early. I think we would want to oppose the governor's proposed cuts to the CPO system because that just seems going the wrong direction. And Terry, I don't know if his budget has any traction in the legislature with regards to CPO funding, or if you have any insight into that. If it doesn't have any traction, then it might not be an issue that we need to worry about, but we certainly want to continue to advocate for the state meeting its 50% funding goal.
Yeah, well, David, I just read an email a short time ago. There was supposed to be a meeting this week regarding the funding, and I know that the MACAC group had written a letter in opposition, and our group is looking at doing the same. So I don't think you can have enough letters, to that committee at the legislature that looks at the funding.
So Commissioner Holland, if you wanted to take formal action to support the 50% language that's in statute, that should cover us for any of the proposals that come out that would propose to do something other than fund it at the statutory level. And we could write a letter based on that.
Well, that's where I've forever thought we should be. If somebody wants to make a motion.
Ludwig will make that motion.
Okay.
Lufgren will second.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, discussion on it?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
While you're doing that, is there any interest in doing either another motion or a friendly amendment to also send a letter opposing the cuts to the adult mental health that we talked about earlier?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Can I amend my motion?
I thought Matt made the motion.
Matt did.
Oh, he did.
We can do two motions, but if Matt wants to amend his motion, we can do two in one.
I can certainly amend my motion to say, send a letter for full support or the 50% support on CPO and CCA. And then also a letter to not cut the funding to the mental health program.
And you agree to that, Terry, as a seconder?
I sure do.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And Terry probably covered it, but I might have missed it. Is there, and I don't want to get into a long discussion, I just want to know if this is happening. Are they trying to carve out the CCA from the CPO? Or carve CPO out of CCA? Or what's happening there?
Well, that's a great question, Commissioner. We asked that question directly because that's how it felt. In fact, the Commissioner of Corrections started out our meeting with the CPO group with that very question. He said, when you guys were looking at adding felony supervision to the language a couple of years ago, why wouldn't you just go CCA? And so we told them the rationale and why we were trying to do that. And then we asked the question and just said, how come we continue to be asked why we should go CCA? And there's a governance piece of the CPO system that we like, and the nimbleness of CPO and the ability to make decisions and develop programs quickly that CCA doesn't provide, that CCA is governed by a corrections board and CPO is not. And so we explain that to them. Some of it is really educating the commissioner from the ground level. He was a career police officer. And so a lot of our correction systems is confusing as can be, let alone to somebody who doesn't have much history with it. And so, but that's really how it is felt. And we have just said, listen, if you think that you have some type of formula that you've put together that suggests that the dollars and cents make more sense in the CCA system, let us know that. And we have yet to get that because we know that if you add CCA, you also take on the DOC agents, you start to add overhead, building costs and so on. You take on felony supervision and you take on parolees. So I've done the math before, and to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, the clerk will call a roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lundgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldau.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move on to commissioner updates. First up is Council on Aging. We had a meeting last week, I believe. Anyway, food seems to be the topic of the day. They're adding more and more of these food pop-up sites and distribution systems throughout central Minnesota to try to catch up with demand. So that's, and it seems to be working. They also talked about the caregivers themselves and how we've been working for years to keep people at home as long as we can, and so the care that people can get at home through this pandemic has been difficult, to say the least, for the givers and the receivers. So they are doing as much as they can remotely, especially in the advice end of things. So the senior linkage line continues to be the number one source of information that people can get if you're a senior citizen. And so we want to make sure that people know that number. Anyway, that's about it for now. Regional Juvenile Center.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was in Rochester, and so Director Fawcett will cover that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met on February 4th. The main thing to do was to reconcile the 2020 budget. There was after completing step one of the joint powers agreement budget reconciliation process, there was a projected surplus of $94,473.71. There was a motion made to place the surplus funds in the operational reserve account. That motion carried. We had a program update. The main thing now is numbers are starting to rise again with overall youth numbers in the facility. And then the other main thing that we did was take a look at the 2022 joint powers agreement. Now, I made a motion to approve option A as the budget reconciliation method for 2022. And that was seconded by Commissioner Reinert of Anoka County, and that passed unanimously. Option A quickly is, we believe, is a better way of doing business. As you recall, the way that we've been doing business is if you don't utilize your contracted amount of beds, you get a large bill at the end of the year, which we just got one. Option A now will be where you contract. So if Pine County in 2022 remained a member at one bed, and the new per diem would be $280 a day, that would be $102,200. And so we would get a bill, an equal amount monthly to pay whether or not you use the facility or not. And you would only pay above that amount of your contracted bed versus, waiting till the end of the year and getting a bill for $80,000. So we believe that was a good piece of it. Now they're going to start to really look at these other counties that have been using a consistent amount of beds, these non-member counties, Benton, Freeborn, Morrison, Moore, and Stearns. So we're going to start to target them for recruitment to try to get into the next JPA. So those are kind of the big ticket items, and I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. Let's see, East Central Solid Waste Commission. We paid the bills and then had a discussion because last year we got kind of wrapped around the axle with the disposal of deer carcasses and all that carcasses from one county to the other with CWD, and the commissioners in Kanabec County do not want deer carcasses coming from other counties. I can understand that. So we had agreed to get through last hunting season, but then start a discussion this year early so everybody knew what was going on way prior to the first bow season. So we've got a meeting, we're planning it the second Tuesday. It'll be at a regular meeting date, second Monday in March. And we have invited several guests from pollution control and legislators and DNR to talk about how we can properly dispose of deer carcasses in our respective counties. So that's probably the big item coming up for right now. Next is Minnesota rural counties. Did you get to that, JJ?
Yes, that was on the 8th.
Yeah.
And that, first thing I wrote down here for a note to pass on to you guys ties right into what you're talking about with the chronic wasting. They're really pushing priority on the rural deer processing law, and just to keep that going strong, where people can keep processing their deer at home and everything. Also, there was a lot of talk about PILT payments, payment in lieu of taxes. Biggest payments seem to go to the metro area, and there's a gentleman on a meeting there, J.W. Horner, and he was speaking about up in McLeod County how the PILT is down, and it's really catching up, hurting their tax base there. And then he also, well, I'm getting a bad echo here. We had another one to jump into. This was really interesting. There, apparently, the governor has put the California car standards on our state. Has anybody heard of that or followed that? So they had a MADA, M-A-D-A, Minnesota Auto Dealer Association. Amber Backus spoke just how much of an economic killer it is to the counties so far, and I know that's one of our priorities to look at is our development, business development, and everything in our county. It's executive authority is what Walz imposed, and they're afraid it's going to carry over into the agriculture, to tractors, the semis, everything needed, for farming and for business, for our logging, everything. They said some counties are actually looking at passing resolutions against it and sharing that with you. The only thing I could think of what ties to us is we were just speaking at the last couple meetings of how that the wheelage tax, that extra $10 per vehicle and how that went over in a county. I mean, they're talking thousands right here. I know what I took up to $12 estimated vehicle cost increase with this new executive authority, pushing the new electric vehicles. Josh probably knows more than anybody with his line of work. The cost of these batteries, the recharging stations, not just to mention the 28 below zero. We're not California. And there's a lot of opposition to it right now. They said that, between the truckers, the service stations, farm growers, and then of course the state chamber has concerns. We also spoke of about the broadband that we just touched on here today a little bit. Nathan Zacharias spoke about the broadband speed tests. They're testing now in Candy, Ohio, Chisago counties, and he just said if there's any other counties interested in testing, just to get a hold of him. There was a vote for the broadband coalition, so I voted for it for us. What else I got here? I believe that's about it. We touched on there on the 8th there, everybody. Got a few more scribbles here. Anybody have any questions or anything? I think that's it.
JJ?
Yeah.
Regional Library.
I attended that. The one thing that I thought was pretty cool is Sandstone is working on getting a new library construction grant. So hopefully Sandstone will be having a new library soon. They have a new program. It's called the Brain Fuse Ignite. It's igniting your mind. It's a program for students who need help. They can go online, they can get help from tutors, they can have other students go online. It's a safe place where the kids can gather to learn more and to work on their school. They also have a help program, or Help Now, or Job Now through Brain Fuse, which is if somebody's looking for help doing a resume or doing job interviews or a career coach or anything like that, they can go online with this job or Brain Fuse Job Now and get help with that. So, the other thing, if anybody wants to learn chess, they have live chess tutoring through the Help Now program through Brain Fuse. The new thing that they have through that is a scholarship for low-income families. It's a $4,000 scholarship that's going to be given to 2 people. And so I believe it's statewide, but I might be wrong on that. We did do a scholarship committee, which I'm part of, and we had met yesterday to come up with our criteria and how we were going to do that. And so letters are going to be going out to all of the schools and to the libraries for homeschoolers to come up with some low-income kids that are highly motivated and good job performance, good school performance, and that would be interested in a scholarship. So that was pretty cool.
Thank you. Chemical Health Coalition.
Sorry, what?
I'll do pipeline chemical health.
Yeah, I will. I can go. I'll do that one too. And it was really interesting. So there is a survey that needs to be done. There's 50 surveys that need to be done. And so because normally human services would do that, and with COVID and all of the things that they're doing through COVID to keep people safe, the committee agreed that we'll all do at least 3 people. So if anybody wants to do a survey, hop on anybody that's on that committee and we'd be happy to do a survey with you. It's a person-to-person survey. They talked about how they're going to be getting their money. There's some grant money that they're questioning if it's going to continue going. I think it
ends in June.
It ends in June.
That's what we're going to get surveys on.
Yeah, so that we need to get the surveys done, and then hopefully we'll be able to continue with that grant money. So, anything else?
No, I think, well, we had talked about our medical examiner report made it into our discussion.
Yes.
Which I thought was great, getting out to that group.
Yeah, Becky had brought that up.
Yeah, Becky raised that, so it was good, because of the opioid issue and the meth issues and things like that.
Right.
But otherwise, it was pretty much a general meeting. It's the ripple effect mapping was that model was done too, so we can come back and use that as a tool. So
Right.
that's what a lot. But the interviews are huge. They're the public surveys for groups.
Thank you. Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. You're gonna keep going, Terry?
I will.
We did meet. I'll just say that we met. We'd had quite a long break as Katie Draper's the person that we had met with for many years actually, and she got promoted within the Mille Lacs Band and is now the DNR commissioner there. And so it took them a while to get somebody appointed to be our liaison, and it's Sheena Matrius. Anyway, she's a Pine County girl. Doesn't live in Pine County exactly right now, but she grew up here, so she knows Pine County quite well. And Jamie Edwards, who we've worked with Jamie for years and years, but we did have a good chat. One of the things that did come to light is our top two things that came out of our strategic plan were economic development and broadband. Both of those things are things that we've worked with the tribe on, and will hopefully will continue to work with the tribe on, especially just as of late. Dustin has been our impetus to prod us along, I think, because of his involvement with the Landon Foundation. So we're happy with that. Terry, you can fill in the details.
One of the other things that they talked about was that I thought was really interesting was they said that they're at 35, their band members or Native Americans are at 35% more risk to get COVID. I was looking at the deaths and they're really low on the deaths, but then they had talked about how they're keeping their elders at home, and Steve had been talking about with the aging, how food was a big item, and so they've been delivering food to their elders and to their band members, and just really, this has been a really hard hit for them too, trying to keep everybody healthy.
All right, we'll move to the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trail Legislative Day. I don't know if anybody took part in that.
I did. It was really interesting.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Sure. Let me get to the right page. So one of the things that they were talking about was their annual pass permits have jumped up 40% in sales. So more and more people are starting to use the parks and the trails. And the one thing that came out of that is $25 per day is spent per person in the communities wherever they're going. So if they're going to go out to St. Croix, or if they're going to come up to Banning or wherever in that community, they're spending an average of $25 per person. So that's really, with the 40% increase, that's pretty big. They did keep talking about the, I'm going to get the word wrong, the grant,
The legacy money?
Legacy, yes, thank you. So they said that they have a lot of money in the legacy grant. And so if people are looking for money, that they should get out there and do that, do the applications for that. The legacy fund is very healthy. So they have a lot of money to spend on the parks and trails.
A little bit longer.
They talked about historical markers. They were saying that if we have parks and trails, if we can do historical markers, it makes it more interesting and more people will probably gather there for that. It's the health, the big thing that they're working on right now is health and physical wellness, more local travel. They have interpretive online resources for small groups. So they're doing a lot of things to keep people active. Another thing that they're doing at some of the parks down in the city, or for the parks in the cities, is they're putting park passes at their libraries. So if I wanted to go to a park and I didn't have the money to buy a park pass, I could go check it out at the library and use it for 2 weeks or whatever the time period is, and then just return it when I'm done, which is pretty cool.
All right. Northeast Transportation Partnership. Mark still on? I know Mark went to that because I had another meeting at the same day. I mean, he dialed into it. I had another meeting at the same time. But we'll catch up with that later. Soil and water.
Yes.
Did you get to that?
Yeah. Business as usual around there. There was little talk I had asked actually of the if there was anybody working on the high water levels of sturgeon, and people have been asking me about it, and if there's anything going on this winter in relation to that, if the DNR is looking at things, if the county has been involved with anything. They had said at the Soil and Water there was a couple of people asking. They're just worried spring thaws coming, it's near, and I just said if there's anything I can do with this position or go between Soil and Water and the county, let me know. Please keep me in the loop. Windermere Township has been working with Mark LeBrun on Island Lake shoreline and road stabilization. Said it was going good. The Soil and Water met with the county attorney on a statute for levy authority in the hearing. Paul gave us an update on that. Remote viewing on their end actually was cutting out. I don't know if they've been having any issues in their building now, but so Paul had texted and said they lost your feed, got it back up. Like I said, business as usual there. The next meeting is March 10th, 3 p.m. That's it.
All right. JJ, are they filling that tech? Don't they have an empty tech position?
There's no talk on that unless it was that moment of time where, like I said, we lost all.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost all feeds on there. I could follow up on that, and
I was
shoot
just
them a text here.
aren't they down at tech positions? I believe. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
What was the question?
Are they down in tech position with Soil and Water?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So JJ, are the tree orders gonna go as scheduled? That was my only question.
Ordering trees.
Yeah, from what I
According
understand,
to their website,
no talk
yes.
about this weekend.
Okay, thanks.
I saw they're out of a couple of species already, but I mean, that happens. Jack, did you order that tree?
That was me. So, we talked a lot about what the issues are right now, and with COVID, that's taken a whole different leap as to what they're actually being able to get done for their normal jobs because everybody is so concentrated on the COVID and the shots. The one thing that they brought up, which I had asked Sam about, was if we have an excess of shots, what we're doing with them, because a lot of the counties are ending up with an excess of shots that they are giving to their local doctors or wherever so that they can get them out to the public. They did talk about the lack of broadband is keeping people from knowing of where they can get shots. So again, broadband is brought up in the lack of it and how that's affecting what the services that the people are getting. They said that the best role for the county commissioners is to be involved, to get policies in place and to support our human resource employees, especially with the additional work that they've had thrown on them. But they said that like some of them had it where they could get a max of so many hours of content, and they've been changing those so that they can do more because they're obviously putting in way more hours. They did have an election for their board members, and I am the alternate on the executive committee for our region. So we'll get more updates.
Good for you. All right. I went to the Minnesota Coalition on Homeless, which was very interesting. And the one takeaway I had is the county commissioner from Candy-Ojai County said, his quote of the day was, "It costs a lot to live in poverty." And just write that down and think about that once in a while. You know, think of the poor people that if you're trying to put fuel in a fuel tank and you don't have money, and then you're trying to pay your electric bill and you're trying to pay your water bill and blah, 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 it goes on and on. Anyway, it was kind of a kickoff meeting, so it was more of kind of getting to know each other. They've never held this kind of a coalition with outstate people, because everybody always thought homelessness only existed in cities, and we know it happens in Candy-Ojai County and Kitson County and Pine County. So anyway, we'll see what comes of that. Any other business that we need to bring up? We've got AMC coming up on Wednesday, is it? Thursday?
The new commissioner training is Wednesday and the legislative conference is Thursday.
Yep. Try to get dialed into that. And next Tuesday. Anyway, you can see the schedule of all the meetings we got coming up. The broadband meetings on the Tuesday the 23rd. So we'll see you then.
Josh?
No other business. We'll declare the meeting adjourned.
Yeah, Deb.
Do we be able to stop in this afternoon?
Sounds good. You're there till what, 4:30?
Do we have a number of our Pine County homeless?
Okay, I'll stop this afternoon.
I don't know.
Thank you, Josh.
What was that? Did you ask a question, Matt?
I just was, do we have a number on how many people are homeless in Pine County? And I think we'd have to go to churches and HHS and everywhere else to come up with that number.
Actually, Becky probably has it, because they do a time date where they have people, and they do the same day, same time. Yeah, it's kind of a swag. Homelessness means different things to a lot of different people. But anyway, they use the same criteria every year, so we kind of have an idea in Pine County if it's going up or down. But I don't remember that number. I'll get it for you though.
I can just imagine though, there's some flying under the radar. These people that stay with a friend until they get sick of them, go to another friend, they're just flopping. How do we know that?
That's basically the definition of homelessness, Matt, that people don't recognize is the couch jumpers. You hit the nail on the head. Somebody comes and stays in your basement for 2 weeks, so you can't stand it anymore. By tomorrow you're gonna have to leave, So then they find somebody else to go shack up with or whatever.
It would be really good to find a way if we could figure out a model or some way to find that number.
Yeah, it's a hard number to get to, but it does exist. But I don't know it off the bat. All I know is the little homeless shelter in Pine City has about 10 people, and they generally are full. There's days every once in a while where 2 or 3 people get out. They don't have 2 or 3 people that'll come that same day to sleep in a bed at night. But most of the time they have a waiting list, and that's only by referral. It's not a drop-in site. So
I know we heard I know we heard in one of our meetings that there was a couple families living in cars. I heard it once in one of our.
Can you imagine in this weather?
Yeah.
Can you imagine what kind of sleep you get in a front seat of a car if you got two kids in the back?
Yeah.
And how do you get cleaned up?
We'll see you guys. Have a good one.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to work. Nice seeing you all. Take care.
Yeah, we'll see you, JJ.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Stay cool.
Stay warm. All right. Take care, guys.